We just faced, though, the biggest, most thoughtful piece of regulation related to these companies and privacy, and that came out of Europe with this GDPR. And what we found so far is that it hasn't had a material impact on these companies. It hasn't deterred advertisers from the Google or Facebook advertising platforms, and it doesn't seem to have deterred consumers either. So it's possible that new regulation will arise here in the U.S. That's probably going to take multiple years to play out if it does occur. I think the bigger risk to these companies' fundamentals remains its competition and its maturity of the industries. It's not regulation.
Well, Ethan, let me get your perspective on regulation itself, or from a DOJ/law enforcement legislative perspective. What would be the road to go down here if you really wanted to actually regulate this?
It would be virtually impossible to regulate this type of speech. These aggregators of press are entitled to the same First Amendment protection as the rest of us. In fact, less than 10 years ago, the Supreme Court decided in Citizens United that both natural persons and corporations are entitled to the full protection of the First Amendment. And the president, the executive branch, the judiciary, and Congress cannot invade upon either the aggregators, the press, or individuals' right to free speech. So I think it's going to be very unlikely that there's going to actually be any movement to regulate how the aggregators are aggregating the various press articles.
However, if the government wanted to make a statement or punish these companies, Ethan, how easy would it be for them to go after, say, a Google for antitrust reasons? Europe has 3 cases open against the company.
That's right, and we've seen that when the administration is upset with the statements made by particular press outlets, it's maybe a coincidence, maybe it's intentional that all of a sudden they are subject to antitrust scrutiny. And we just saw a lawsuit, which is now on appeal to the D.C. Circuit by AT&T and Time Warner. We know that the Washington Post-Amazon relationship has garnered quite a bit of interest and has potentially pushed Amazon into an area where they've been investigated for basically competing. So in the U.S., it's possible that investigations will be open, as they have, to investigate competition based upon trying to placate these non-competition complaints.
Mark, we hear more and more about the market power of these companies, the power of their platforms. They're perhaps inhibiting innovation in some way as a result of that. The narrative seems to be changing a bit, at least in terms of public perception. Does that actually matter in terms of the narrative and the perception of investors?
David, I don't think it does near term. I guess the 2 points I'd make is if you were going to look for companies that could abuse potentially monopolistic positions, you know, they're right in front of you. They are Google and Facebook. These are massive platforms. So there's no question in my mind that these are companies that should be scrutinized, and they are scrutinized intensely. Whether there's any evidence and whether there's clear evidence that they've undermined innovation, that's not at all clear to me. I look at the other services that have risen up and fallen in social media. I haven't seen a better social media network that's come out that somehow Facebook undermined. And the same thing with search. I don't think there's a better search engine out there, at least you know, statistically speaking, if you look at it relatively objectively. Doesn't mean things can't change in the future. New technology like blockchain, that could undermine some of these business models in the future. Probably be a healthy thing if it did. But I haven't seen, you know, real anti-competitive, anti-innovative moves by these companies on a consistent basis. And frankly, I just haven't seen it in the case of Facebook.